me on a plane to new games. I gotta go.
My name is Christopher Sean Chigumba. I'm Zimbabwean. I'm 32 years old, and I'm here in Canada, in Nanaimo. I would describe myself as a fan of music first. I've always enjoyed listening to music and experiencing music, and from there, I'm a writer, a rapper, a dancer, a producer. I create things essentially, and they revolve around music because that's the thing that I love the most. But I'm a fan first and foremost. Yeah. So I arrived in Canada when I was 26 years old. The reason why I came here was mostly to get away from an economic situation that wasn't really great. I know a lot of other Zimbabweans have kind of faced this thing as well. But my decision to come here was to see if I could start over, to see if I could make my own way. If I fail, I simply just go back home to my family. So I kind of came to make my own way. I spent 2 years in Zimbabwe working as a lawyer, working in private practice, and essentially just looking at how much I was earning and what I potentially wanted to do. It wasn't looking right. So we thought, okay, let's just take a chance, go to Canada and see what you can do. So I came here to Nanaimo to study at VIU, to do a postgraduate diploma in business studies, and then from there to see if I could actually put my roots in the ground and see if I could stay in Canada for longer. So finishing school, started working, and yeah, got my paperwork together and got my permanent residence so I can stay longer and hopefully bring my family over. So the reason why I left was to see if I could build a better future, and I think I'm in that process right now. One of the differences of being in Canada. So my entire life, I've never seen snow. And I came here 26 years old, and I arrived around end of August. So I had to go renew my passport, and but you have to do that in Ottawa. So this is me like having to fly from Nanaimo all the way to the other side of the country. And they were in a really bad like snow situation at the time. So I arrive in Ottawa and I get off the plane and it's like snow and ice everywhere. And I'm like, oh, this is what snow looks like. And you know, me being me, I take my gloves off and I stick my hand in and I'm like, oh, what is this stuff? And my hands start burning immediately, obviously, because it's cold. Just to have, in my mind, the stuff that's in your deep freeze, you know, your refrigerator, to have ice fall from the sky, just conceptually, as an African person who's always seen, I've seen sun, I've seen rain, I've seen purple lightning, but ice falling from the sky. On the opposite side, you had a heat wave that was running up towards the 30s, and everyone was like panicking, we're melting. That's a normal thing in Zimbabwe. That's October in Zimbabwe. Your heat wave was like the first half of October, which is like our hottest month. But we get up in the 20s, the 30s. There are places that can, you know, get as hot as 40 degrees here. What drew me to music? So music for me has always been a big part of my life. When I was younger, I grew up with my aunties and uncles, and usually the aunties would be the ones hanging out with me. I was born in 1990, so they were teenagers at the time, so it was just all sorts of R&B, pop music, 80s soul, funk, that sort of thing. And, you know, they would play their records all the time, and because they were babysitting me, I would kind of be their little dancer, so they would make me dance and stuff like that. That's kind of where my love for music started. It was more in R&B and soul. And growing up, I think around 13, we got to high school, and breakdancing was the thing that was really cool at the time. Like everyone who was a cool kid was someone who could dance. And my friends and I started a little group, and we were part of a larger group called Beat Street. So what they would make us do is halftime shows during basketball games against other schools. They would bring us out there. They would beatbox, so the crowd would make a little beat, and then they would make us dance, and we would battle the other schools. At some point, the other schools just stopped bringing people to dance because we could just take them all. We were good like that, and there was no internet. So I don't have proof of that. I have to be the living proof. But my friends remember, they know. Blaze Squad is what our little group was called. And so we would continue to dance. We ended up in a music video around about the time I was 15, 16. there was a big hip hop group called Major Players, and they did this great shoot. They bussed us out there. They had a boat, they had a plane, they had all kinds of things. Like, it was a really great setup, and we were just, we were young. We choreographed our section, and we featured in the video. Nothing really came from it, but that was me really getting into music at a young age. But life and circumstances, right? I was kind of told, this isn't a career for you. You're not going to do anything with this. Stick to the books, stick to school. So that's how I ended up going to law school. And I studied in South Africa at Fort Hare University. And it was great. I'm going to school, I'm doing my thing, but I needed a counterbalance. So I needed something else that wasn't so bookish to counterbalance, being in the library all the time. So music, because I couldn't really dance the way that I could before, people would say to me, you can't be a respectable lawyer if people see you in the club, like, spinning on your head, right? So I turned that passion for dance into writing and recording music. And so my roommates and I kind of formed a little collective. We called ourselves Syndrome Entertainment, and we started teaching ourselves how to create music. We didn't even have equipment, we didn't have a lot of software. We had really basic, bare bones type of stuff. And we said, you know what, we're going to learn anyway. And I remember we had a little pair of headphones that we snapped in half, and we put the jack into the microphone, and then we stuck it onto the locker. And what we would do is we would rap into that little headphones, and then that's how we would record music. And then we would go out and play it for our friends, and we joined the Creative Mind Society, which was like the kind of, if you were creative or performing artist in any way, you could join, and they would hook you up at shows, and you would go to open mics, and we would go to the open mics as Syndrome Entertainment. Our gambit was we would take up a couple of slots every time, because if you showed up late, you didn't get a slot. So we'd show up early, grab some slots, and then start interacting with other artists and ask them, do you want to get on stage? Do you want to get on stage? To see if we could find other artists to actually work with and create music with. And by doing that, I met some very interesting people. And I was then able to actually start recording them. So they would get on stage, they would do a great show, and then afterwards we would say, hey, we have a little recording situation, do you want to come by? And they would come over, and I started actually producing vocals myself. My roommate would make the beats, and then I would do the engineering and all of that. It wasn't very good, but you learn, right? Every song that I made, I got better. I didn't start with rap. I started with Zim dancehall, actually. So these guys would come through. It's got this like reggae sound, and they got Shauna. It's dancehall. It's all this, and I would learn how to produce their vocals, and that's kind of how I got into sound engineering and learning how to make my own music. From there, I would then write my own songs, record them, and all of the skills and tricks that I learned from making music for other artists, I would then apply to myself. And that was us in South Africa. I finished in like a mixtape around that time, just as I was going back to Zimbabwe. It was called The Method, and it was just a collection of songs that I'd been writing. During that time is also when I decided on my name as an artist to be Alpha Centauri. And the reason why I chose that name is I was going through a bit of a tough time in my life, some ups and downs, but I was really, really down. And the story goes, I was outside and I was looking up at the stars, and I don't know, in my head I thought I was gonna have that Lion King moment where Mufasa comes through the clouds, and he tells you some great message. I didn't get that. I was just angry and kind of venting up at the stars, and I didn't get an answer back. And as I was walking back into the house, I caught my reflection in the window, and in that moment I realized, oh, I don't need to look up. I have the answer. I am the answer. So I ran back in the house and I got on the Google and I looked up names of stars, and Alpha Centauri was the coolest sounding one, so that's why I chose it. It's a middle finger of a metaphor as well, because it's like I don't need to look outside of myself to find the answers that I need. So all of the music that I make, the way that I approach my message always has this positive element to it, because I'm trying to remind myself, and hopefully anyone who listens to it, that you have the answers and they are inside. From going back to Zimbabwe now, after releasing the method, I go back to Zimbabwe. I'm now working as a lawyer. It's going great, right? I'm doing a good job, but I also still kept music as that counterbalance. Still can't dance, but I can at least make music when I go home. So I tried to get onto the radio. I got a bunch of friends of mine to help me get some connections here or there. We made a CD. It was called Centauri Volume 1. It had like 5 songs on it. We tried, went station after station. And I think the reason why I didn't get on was something to do with me not getting something for somebody. I think there was an ask that I wasn't willing to pay, and I said, my job is to make music, your job is to play it. There shouldn't really be anything in between that. So I kind of withdrew, and I was kind of upset about it. So I kind of just shut my music thing down for a little bit, as I was also needing to transition to Canada. And when I arrived here, I was really, really lucky. I got to VIU, and the first group of people that I was able to find, not only were they Zimbabweans, but they also made music. And so I made friends with, there was Swisha, there was Lawrence, there was Tino, Ngoni, all of these great guys. And they're all interested in making music. We would hang out. They're rapping, freestyling, and I'm like, these guys don't even know I produce music. Let's sit down and have a conversation. So I started going over there, and we started, making music and doing all of these freestyle sessions at the VIU, at the student pub. Go there on Thursdays, have a couple of drinks, sing a few songs, and we got noticed by a promoter. His name is Wes, who then managed to get us into a couple of shows. He booked us for Surreal, opening up for his tour in the Nick of Time. We also opened up for Caleb Hart, as well as Elvis Presley and the Space Boots. Had a night at the Queens, and we opened up for them. And yeah, so that's what we were doing, maybe about 2 years into me arriving to Canada. And it was a great time, but it was only just for that time. As I said, my reasons for leaving Zimbabwe was I needed to put my roots in the ground. So I had to take work and getting my paperwork more seriously. So kind of put the music on the back burner for a little bit. But as of 2021, I realized that I needed to really get back to what I love the most. So I started taking all of the music I'd been making, because still, even as I'm working, even as I'm living my life, I'm always making music. I'm always coming home to sing a song, to work on something with another artist or whatever. So I decided now it's time to show everyone. And I was lucky enough to get contacted by a filmmaker who needed a song for a film that described the story of a woman leaving Zimbabwe and coming to Canada and her experience here. The movie's called Evelyn. It premiered at the Whistler Film Festival in 2021. It was greatly received, and just to be a part of that project, the song that I created was called Away, and it told that specific story of leaving home, having to come to a brand new place. You don't know anything or anyone. And more so just the pressure and the expectations that people who you've left behind would place on you as someone who's an immigrant, who's come to another country. There's that pressure of their expectations and your own personal expectations of wanting to succeed, and coming to a place where you don't know anything and you don't know what success is. Sometimes your expectations of what things are going to be have to change as well. So there's a lot of feeling in there. So I wrote a song about it, and that's the song that got featured in the film. And once I'd had that conversation, I realized I need to really get back to the gift that I've known I've always had. So I started dancing again, right? I no longer have that pressure of, oh, you're a lawyer and all of this. I stopped living for everyone else's ideals and just started being myself. And so I went back to the dance studio and started dancing again, put out some music. I put out an EP called Summer 21. And that was more of a celebration of 5 years of being an immigrant in Canada, celebrating getting my permanent residence, getting, those roots in the ground like I promised I would, and just being able to be my authentic self again. So yeah, that's what drew me to music, and that's why I'm still here. So my approach to writing the music that I write, as I was explaining, that as Alpha Centauri, there's always a positive mental health aspirational element to it that underlies most of my music. But in coming to the diaspora as an immigrant, I've found that my identity and where I'm from is much more important. To know that I'm Zimbabwean, right? I come from a Southern African country, is to also say that I'm bilingual, right? I speak English because the language of education in Zimbabwe is English, but I also speak Shona, which is my mother tongue. And I believe there are about 16 million Zimbabweans, give or take, within Zimbabwe, and probably a couple more million in the diaspora. And we all, most of us, not all of us, the majority of us speak Shona. And so I wanted to include that within my music, not only just to honor where I'm from, but also sometimes to sing to the people who will hear it in the way that only us as Shona people will be able to speak to each other. So I incorporate elements of my mother tongue into my music so that the Zimbabweans can hear it, but to also introduce Canadians to it as well. To have that extra element isn't something that everyone else can do. And I realized that that as part of my identity is so much more important, because no one is from where I'm from. I'm an immigrant in a new country, and I can sing in my own language. But I would also like you to hear what I can sing. So I incorporate English, and then I add a little bit of the Shona as well, so that my people know, and they can hear some of the references, and they know what I'm singing about and where my heart is. And just to be able to talk to both sides is incredible. Being able to perform here in Canada and speak and sing on stage in another language is interesting, because most Canadians are so receptive to hearing another perspective, to hearing another sound, another language, and they ask, oh, where is that from? What does that mean? And when I then explain, what it means, the conversations and the connections there are so much more meaningful, I believe, as opposed to me coming and trying to be something I'm not, or be something you're accustomed to. I can rap in circles, around anybody in English. But if I add Shona as well, it adds that extra flavor, and it makes me uniquely Zimbabwean. And I think that is also part of my immigrant story, right? That I'm from somewhere else, but I like being here. But I'd still always want to remember where I'm from.
Alpha Centauri. Come on. When will you see that you and me could live a dream life? Leave it all behind, no red light. We could ignite if you believe it enough. 30 seconds or 30 minutes on heavy days. Get out your mind, get on your path, get on your way. Move something, shake that energy making you face. In and out of the vision, demons you never facing. Keep keen the timeline, clout chasing. Why you scared to face the truth without blazing? Where's your light? It's your fight. Why you wasting your time? You can live your dream life. I know you think they're watching, they don't care until you win. If that's really what you want, you gotta look within. You have to read between the lines, defined within your skin. Don't need to wear a crown, I've been hard, makes you a king. I promised I would dance for them, the rain that I will bring. All I need is time, let me design and move the pen. The crimes that we committed are records of where we've been. The climb that I foresee was given without a gin. The energy you feel is light from all my zen. The past becomes the present, the future I'm targeting. Everybody that we gotta get on the scene. My chance to shape the world, the vibe is still within. All my know-how got me moving pro. How will I make it real now? Gotta get a deal. How that make you feel? How when we make the money? Ain't nobody doing shows now. I'll be on a new sound. That's just how I blow. Vision and missing me in reality. I'm gonna walk my path to destiny with the clarity. Nobody can take what was always gonna come naturally. Haters will have to hold on. I owe it to all the faculty. Every time I flow, I go. I'm on my wavy. Life wanna suck, then a baby. Living out my dream. I'm clean. It feels amazing. I'm gonna pay you back to everybody that made me. Yeah. Let's take one.